All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking something absolutely massive, highly industrialized, and frankly, completely brutal. We're looking at a transnational criminal enterprise that is operating right now inside Cambodia's borders. We're talking about heavily fortified cyber scam hubs, hidden away inside isolated developments and casinos, generating literally billions of dollars through online financial crimes. And it is all run primarily by foreign criminal syndicates.
So let me ask you something. Have you ever gotten one of those random, wrong number texts? You know, maybe it's from someone claiming to be a highly attractive stranger, or someone asking to confirm a meeting you know nothing about. Well, while it might just seem like a minor digital annoyance or, everyday spam, that innocent-looking text is actually the front door to a sprawling multi-billion-dollar global crisis. It's just the tip of a very, very dark iceberg.
To really understand how these syndicates operate, we need to trace this from top to bottom. Here is our roadmap for today. 1. The cyber slavery supply chain. 2. Anatomy of pig butchering. 3. High-tech fraud infrastructure. 4. The nationwide cybercrime crackdown. 5. Elite targets and new laws. And finally, 6. Complications and humanitarian crises.
All right, let's start with Section 1, the cyber slavery supply chain. Okay, so the absolute core of these scam compounds, the engine that keeps them running, is human trafficking. It all starts with deceptive recruitment. Syndicates will post these amazing, lucrative-sounding job ads for tech or hospitality roles in Southeast Asia. But the second these people arrive, it's immediate abduction. Their passports and phones are confiscated, and they're locked inside these heavily fortified prison-like compounds. And here is where it gets incredibly grim. If these enslaved workers miss their daily financial quotas, they face violent enforcement. I mean, we're talking beatings, electric shocks, food deprivation, and sexual violence. So that random person sending you that spam text, they're often a victim themselves, trapped in a living nightmare.
Moving on to Section 2, Anatomy of pig butchering. So, how exactly are they stealing all this money? It's through a long-term psychological con known as shadzupan, which translates to pig butchering. And yeah, it is exactly as chilling as it sounds. It's a farming metaphor. A victim is targeted or hunted. Then they're slowly manipulated and showered with affection to build this deep trust. That's being fattened up. And then finally, they're stripped of their entire life savings. They're slaughtered. The execution of this is wild. It's a highly sophisticated 5-step playbook. Step 1 is the hook, that wrong number text or dating app message. Step 2 is character packaging. Scammers build these hyper-specific, entirely fake personas using stolen photos and even AI deepfakes to look like wealthy investors. Step 3 is slow grooming. They follow these psychology-backed scripts to build real romantic bonds or friendships over weeks, totally avoiding any talk about money. Then, Step 4, the soft pivot. They casually mention a risk-free crypto or gold investment using inside info. And finally, Step 5 is the lockout, where they just vanish into thin air after draining every cent the victim has.
But here's the craziest part about how they pull this off. They direct victims to download custom trading apps that they completely control. The illusion? You see massive, simulated financial gains. And the syndicate actually lets you withdraw small amounts of real cash early on. This completely disarms the victim, right? It makes them think, wow, this is real, so they invest everything. But the reality? When you try to make a major withdrawal, the system suddenly locks you out. The scammers demand these massive fake taxes or security fees to get your money back. And once you're tapped out, they cut all communication. It is totally ruthless.
Let's look at Section 3, High-tech fraud infrastructure.
You might be picturing some guys in a basement with laptops, but no. These syndicates operate like massive multinational tech corporations. Reuters actually did an investigation and found specialized rooms in these compounds built like Hollywood-style video sets. I mean, they literally built them to look exactly like real police stations in Singapore, Brazil, or India. The scammers wear fake uniforms and use AI deepfake filters to extort people over live video calls. Meanwhile, all that stolen cash, it's instantly laundered into crypto, like Bitcoin or Tether, through underground casinos, moving way too fast for traditional banks to track it. To put the sheer scale of this into perspective, look at this. This single illicit industry grew so massive, it was estimated to make up roughly 40% of Cambodia's entire GDP. 40%. That is absolutely mind-blowing. And because of that, driven by massive international pressure from groups like the FBI, the Cambodian government was practically forced to take sweeping action. They had a multi-billion-dollar illicit economy that was literally rivaling their legitimate one.
Which brings us to Section 4, the nationwide cybercrime crackdown.
So the government pivoted from just doing random ad hoc raids to a strategy of systemic containment. And the numbers here are staggering. They inspected over 28,000 locations. They raided 737 identified scam centers and officially sealed 537 of them. They audited 195 licensed casinos and found 72 were actively facilitating fraud. And prosecutors forwarded cases resulting in over 2,700 suspects facing trial. This was a massive, massive shift in enforcement.
As a result of this sweep, over 21,000 foreign nationals were deported. We're talking people from 38 different nationalities, primarily from China, Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, and Bangladesh. But we have to pause here because there's a really heartbreaking reality behind this number. Thousands of these deported individuals weren't the masterminds. They were the human trafficking victims we talked about earlier. They were forced into this labor.
All right, Section 5, Elite Targets and New Laws.
Now, unlike past crackdowns, authorities are actually going after the big fish, the elite infrastructure making this possible. They arrested Qin Zi, a billionaire chairman, stripped him of a citizenship and extradited him to China. They ordered the total liquidation of Prince Bank to choke off those money laundering channels. They slapped $2 million in fines on complicit landlords, and they even saw international sanctions hit powerful tycoons and politicians, like Senators Lee Yong-pat and Koch Ann, for letting these forced labor compounds operate on their land. They're finally hitting them where it hurts.
And to back all this up, in April, they rolled out a sweeping new anti-scam law. This is a huge deal. It's designed to dismantle this ecosystem from the top down. It introduces harsh penalties, up to life in prison, for the top-tier bosses, tech providers, and financial facilitators. But crucially, it also finally creates distinct legal frameworks to actually protect forced labor victims instead of just prosecuting them alongside the willing gang members.
Finally, let's look at Section 6, Complications and Humanitarian Crises.
Because look, despite those impressive government metrics we just talked about, things on the ground are always way more complicated. International watchdogs are raising some major red flags. Amnesty International put out a report identifying 86 active scam compounds. But out of those 86, only 24 showed concrete evidence of any state intervention. That's a glaring gap. It strongly suggests that certain politically connected networks might still be getting a free pass. And honestly, it gets worse. Trafficking survivors are reporting that corrupt local officials are actually tipping off the compound managers before the police even arrive. So thanks to these pre-raid tips, the syndicates just destroy all the evidence, pack up, and quietly move their enslaved workers to border towns like Poi Phet. So sure, a building gets shut down for the cameras, but the actual human suffering, it just relocates.
Which brings us to the devastating reality we're facing right now. According to the UN, as these crackdowns happen and bosses flee, tens of thousands of trafficked workers are just being dumped onto the streets. They're stranded in a foreign country, no ID, no money, they can't even pay local visa fines. So as we wrap up this explainer, it leaves us with an incredibly urgent, provocative question. Who actually takes responsibility for these victims now? This isn't just about a wrong number text anymore. This is a massive, incredibly complex humanitarian crisis, and it demands the world's attention.